Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to a very special edition of the Fan View, where we are today celebrating the promotion of Luton Town Football Club. And I am delighted to welcome our new Luton Town correspondent, Dan Ashby. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, all good. Been a bit of a whirlwind, not just the last few seasons, but the last weekend. So yeah, I'm good. It's a bit ridiculous, and we'll get through. I'm sure we'll get into the story, but yeah, I'm excited to not just have Luton in the Premier League, but also to be asked to be a correspondent. Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me, James.
You're very welcome, mate. Welcome to the team, mate. I know a lot of the correspondents have been in touch with you already, welcoming you to the
Yeah.
team. Tell us a little bit about you for those who don't know who you are. Where might we know you from already?
So obviously I'm on Twitter at Dan Luke Ashby. I'm one of the co-hosts of the EFL Fantasy Podcast, which is basically Championship fantasy football. So my knowledge of that league, I'd like to say, is one of the best probably around. Yeah, so we do a podcast once or twice a week on that. Basically, the fantasy, looking into depth on the fantasy. So it makes sense to ask me to talk about Luton in a fantasy term for the Premier League. Whether you whether you'll have any of our players, I don't know, but we'll,
I
we'll
think we'll
see.
talk about that a little bit more in July/August once we know a little
Yeah.
bit more what's happening with the squad. What's your relationship with Luton, Dan? Take me back to the
Yeah,
start. Why Luton?
well, basically, granddad and my dad support them. I've been season ticket holder since I was 6 or 7, and I'm 35 now. So I mainly go to the home games. Obviously, got kids now, so it's a bit trickier to go to a lot of the away games. But yeah, I go to every home game. I watch all the away games online, and then that's basically been it. Like up and down the country, sometimes on the away games, but then um, like I said, season ticket. So we've gone all the way down to non-league. I had season ticket when we were there, all the way back up. This it's been an eventful. I would probably say the fan base with the most promotions and relegations during my lifetime,
When did you first
probably
go?
by some margin. I think it was early 90s. So I missed obviously dropping out. I can't really remember it, but then we gradually dropped down. Then we sort of recovered back to the championship, and then we got relegated three years in a row, 30 points, non-league, and then we've worked our way back up. So yeah, proper fan from probably one of the craziest clubs in the last 30 years.
Definitely so. So for those in the little bit of a history lesson, Luton were very nearly one of the, I guess, say, founding members of the first Premier League
Yeah, they
season. You were relegated the year before in 91/92. The Premier League was formed in 1992. As you said, got so bad to an extent you ended up having three relegations, which included this 30-point deduction, which I know still anchors and a lot of Luton fans are still very resentful against that point deduction. I want to say Bournemouth also had a massive point deduction, maybe even in the same season in League Two.
it was yeah, it was us, Bournemouth, and Rotherham. I think Rotherham and Bournemouth had 17 and Luton had 30. And those two obviously stayed up. We would have stayed up. But it's just a ridiculous point deduction.
So over the course of
Yes.
30 years, you've gone from effectively Premier League all the way down to National League. And not only have you come back from the National League, you've gone from National League to Tier 5 of English football to the Premier League in 9 years. It's a
Yeah.
sort of feat only achievable on Football Manager. How how have you done it?
So the first thing is the club is fan owned. So more importantly was to get it stable because it was in a mess. And if you listen to Harford or Gary Swede, it was basically gone. It was should have been written off. It should have been a Berry or any of those clubs that have unfortunately gone. And we had 5 years in the non-league where we were the biggest side in non-league, um, and we got to 3 consecutive playoffs. We lost twice at Wembley. One was um, penalty shootout. Another one was an offside goal that was about 3 yards offside. And we then had a season where we finished outside of the playoffs, and the club brought in manager John Still, who I don't know if you know, is quite renowned for non-league and League Two. And he basically just transformed the club and built a culture that was really together, not just on the pitch but off it. As you can imagine, fans were getting quite annoyed with not bouncing back straight away. And you only have to look at this season with the points of Notts County and Wrexham. Like it's a terrible league, and with only one up and one through the playoffs, it really needs to be 3 up, 3 down.
I think that's going to change
But
soon,
yeah,
isn't it?
I hope it should do, because you get a real just a bottleneck at League Two of clubs that really aren't good enough. Um, but yeah, John Still created a culture of togetherness, and in that side we had Andre Gray, who got 30 goals. Obviously, we sold him in when we were in League Two to Brentford, and then John Still it sort of just faded away, and we were in League Two at this point, and then Nathan Jones came in, and I know Nathan Jones is quite a polarizing character, but for Lewin, he took us onto a new level. He had a different way of playing, which he had the diamonds, the 4-4-2 diamond, and in League Two, we basically finished in the playoffs the first season, full season with him, and then the second year we finished second. And this is going to sound like, but we were the best team. We were beating teams 7-8, and but Accrington won the league, to be fair to them. And we had at that point Jack Stacey and James Justin. James Justin came through the youth team. They were like nowhere near League Two, and it was they were basically playing as wingers. So we at times we were basically playing like four up front, and teams just couldn't cope. And then we basically went back to back, and we won League One. We didn't even sign too many players. We brought in Sonny Bradley, a couple of centre backs, and that was basically it. We didn't even spend too much, but just how good we were. We had a way of playing that not many teams could cope with. During that season, um, Jones left for Stoke, but the club is so well run that we had Mick Harford as caretaker, and it was basically just the players just got together and said, "Look, we're going to get promoted," and Harford just basically kept what Jones had been doing, and we got promoted. We then hired Graham Jones, and yeah, he didn't do that great. Our recruitment was obviously probably the last season where our recruitment wasn't good. We sold James Justin for about 6 to 8 million to Leicester, and Stacey also went that summer as well. So our two key players got sold for about 10 to 15 million. We didn't really invest too much. We were struggling at the bottom, and then COVID hit,
And Nathan
and
Jones came back.
Nathan Jones came back, and we somehow stayed up. I don't know how it happened, but yeah, and because of COVID, what happened is because our club was so well run with FFP, we didn't lose any players. So our good players, where normally other championship side would have poached them, well, everyone's trying to cut their wage bill, and players are just happy to have a contract at the time. So it enabled us with good recruitment during that summer. We brought in Jay's Jay Sochik, who was Blades Analytic on Twitter, and we went a lot more data driven. And since then, our recruitment, I'd say probably about 70-80% of our signings have worked out. We signed Jordan Clark that summer, James Bree, who went to Southampton, Tom Lockyer on a free. We finished mid-table. We had Dewsbury Hall on loan, and that was a great signing on loan. And then, yeah, we didn't know if we could improve, but we improved again to playoffs last year, which was, I thought it would be like we missed an opportunity, but towards the end of that season, we got so many injuries, pretty similar to Sunderland. We had about 7 to 8 players out injured. Um, so I was thinking, well, this going into this season, we'll probably drop back to mid-table. But we didn't lose that many players apart from Naismith. Like we managed because of the contract lengths. A lot of our players were still under contract, and Adebayo, there was interest in him, but we turned it down. Um, yeah, and then I thought that would be our only chance until the new stadium came around, but we just went again and more intelligent recruitment. We splashed out our record transfer fee, which will sound a bit ridiculous, but it's 1.5 to 2 million on Colton Morris, and he got 20 goals, 7 assists, and yeah, and then just went out through the playoffs. Obviously, we then had during this season Nathan Jones got poached
Poached.
again to
Do you
Southampton.
think you'd
I
have gone
mean,
up with him?
um, I'm not sure. The thing is, if I look back to the games back then, we were playing the same formation. We've done little tweaks, like we are. It might not look it on the last 2 games, but we are better in possession. We didn't have marvelous Nakamba, like we didn't have a proper defensive mids, so we struggled at times. We lost. We were conceding a few silly goals, just where we got caught on the counter at the start of the season. Doughty was injured as well, who played left wing back at the start of the season. He's better going forward because we were playing Amari Bell, who eventually tucked into left-sided centre back. So I honestly don't know.
How's
Um,
he?
I
How do Luton fans reflect on Jones now? Is it like you walked out on us twice? Is it like you helped us get through these leagues? How's he held?
it's a mixture. Like he's held with respect, but there is a thing where like the football has improved. And I think it's more fans are starting to think, well, he's gone to Stoke and gone to Southampton and he's struggled. Is it just that Luton are such a well-run club or on and off the pitch that, like transfer-wise, from top to bottom, that maybe the environment, which he obviously played a part of creating, but is more important than the manager because I don't know if you've heard any of Edward's press conference. He's turned around and said basically anyone could have done what I've done. The group of lads are so good.
He has tweaked it though.
The
Like
recruit,
statistically, you do have
yeah,
more of the ball now, which some people might find
yeah,
remarkable of watching you in the playoffs. But you do have more possession now since Jones
yeah,
has gone. But I think it feels like what Edwards has done has been key to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is he's not tried to change the wheel overnight. He's gone, this is working. We're a little bit limited in terms of resources. This is working for the football club. I'm going to change it slowly. That's how it's felt to me. Because he didn't get the Watford
yeah.
job by being a long ball merchant at Forest Green, right?
No, he didn't. But I think it was very smart appointment by Luton. Um, he Edwards favoured three at the back at Forest Green. We already had the players to play three at the backs. And Gary Sweet has said that he viewed the loss of Jones as a chance to improve the club, and Edwards was one of the reasons. For anyone who don't know, he's been a part of England's youth setups, and so as his assistant. Um, so what one of them during the youth setup focused on in possession, and one was out of possession, and that we were so good defensively in the second part of the season, and just our just our shape was noticeably a lot better. So I think Edwards probably did do a good job, but we'll never fully know if Nathan Jones would have got us in the playoffs.
Interesting. What was your reaction when Edwards got it? I know you said it's a smart appointment, but there was
Yeah.
obviously a
So,
rivalry with Watford. Was there it didn't work there?
oh
Although,
no,
I mean, the two, what
no.
did he lose? 2-9 with Watford or something? And he got sacked?
He had 2 in 9, and he started off with, I think, all the like a ridiculous run as well. I think he played Burnley, Sheffield United, and some other West Brom or something. Yeah, it was crazy. And as he said, well, I'm not exactly a Watford legend, am I? So
No, true.
no, I to be honest, before the appointment, I said to Angus and Jamie, who who do my pod, I would like Edwards or Critchley. Critchley obviously is a bit different, doesn't play the same formation. So I was happy with Edwards. He was one of my two choices.
Ready for the Premier League? Is he, personally, do you think?
I don't know. When you think ago about 12 months ago, he was winning the league title with Forest Green. So we'll see. He's going to be asked a lot of questions, but I think Luton will stick with him. I think we see like progression he's done, and I don't think he'll be massively under pressure. Like even if we do really badly, I think he's
No,
someone
surely
who,
not. I mean, if you came up and you lost your first five,
yeah,
6 games or something, that's
yeah, he's not going to be
changing.
under
That's
pressure.
not right, is it?
No,
And
it's
I
not going to
mean,
happen.
expectation. I think you've already mentioned it at the start, right? It almost feels unfathomable that you've actually achieved this. So I'm assuming at this stage there isn't expectations on. Oh, we're going to push for top half. Like you're going to snap my
No,
hand
no,
off if I offer you 17th, right?
100%. But I also believe that we could cause teams problems.
Yes.
Um, yeah, we're different. We've got a different style to a lot of the teams come up. The big boys won't want to play at Kenilworth Road, even with all the 10 million we're spending on the work that started yesterday. Um, yeah, we are long ball at times. We will be direct. We will put crosses in. We will put throw-ins in. Um, yeah, so that's how we play in Premier League type sides. Are going to have to get used to it. We will do the dark arts. We will time waste
You
if
also
we need
press
to.
quite high off the ball. That's what I've noticed. Is that fair?
Yeah, so yeah, so it's weird. We won't just put all men behind the ball. We will
No.
engage. Um, yeah, we will press. We sort of play into Morris and Adebayo, our strikers, and we're going to press. We're going to make sure we win the second balls, and if we do, we'll put a cross in or we'll win a throw in, and then that throw in goes in your box or the corner goes into the box. So um, yeah, it can be uncomfortable, especially if at Kenilworth Road, it's not going to be nice. It's going to be tricky.
Right, let's talk about it. Elephant in the room, because I feel like I want to get this out of the way now before it becomes a thing that
Yeah,
people
yeah,
become obsessed with. So a lot's been made of the stadium. I've been to Kenilworth Road a couple of times. I've been in the away end. I've done the famous oak stand walk through the houses and up the stairs that you're not sure are going to give way and stuff. And it is very surreal to feel like you're in someone's back garden and also in a football stadium. Is it Gary Sweet? Is it the chief executive? He's
yeah.
already won. He's already won quote of the summer when people were
I've seen
referring to the away end, where he said, it's not like Erling Haaland's going to come through the shit away end of the Oak Stand. He's going to come through our other shit main entrance,
yeah.
which I think gives an idea and a suggestion that Luton are embracing very much what Kenilworth Road is at the moment. I'd seen a little bit of speculation that you might not be able to play there, but we think the work has started, hasn't it, to get
It
the
started yesterday.
the small, is it what do you call the small side with it's just boxes, isn't it, basically? I say boxes, I
Yeah,
mean like
they
executive boxes.
yeah, yeah. So basically, we have to spend 10 million to upgrade to the levels of the Premier League. A lot of it's to do with media. So what I gather,
Yeah.
it's putting in TV studios. They then have to have a staff room for all the journalists and things like that. We have to do floodlights because it's all HD. And then obviously we've got to put VAR in, which will be interesting to see how that
you
works
you
through
thought
all
it
the
was all good
posts.
news coming into our league, didn't you?
Oh, I hate that.
Although
I
everybody
absolutely
in the
hate
football
VAR.
league is very quick to tell me how bad the refereeing is at lower levels as well, and
It's
say
bad, but I hate it. I hate it.
you're about to get used to it. So you're staying at the stadium. What's the plan in terms of the future with the football club and new stadium? I've heard
So what?
2026 mentioned for a possible new site.
Yeah, 26, 27 is apparently well, it's actually going around today. From what I gather, the work on the new site start in December time. Um, I think it's going to be about 20 to 23,000 stadium. It's going to be in the center of Luton still, so it's not like off the
One of them you get
motorway
on
or
the edge of a
anything.
motorway and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's going to be in the towns, which is good for the community and everything. I think I read Kieran Maguire reckons something like 500 million has been helped for Brighton just because they're in the Premier League. I'm not saying obviously they've been in what 4 or 5 years now, probably even more. Um,
And
but
ironically,
just
their
the
stadium isn't even in Brighton's, really.
yeah, so yeah, it's going to be massive for the town, massive for the football club. But I'm sort of excited to get the Kenny for at least 1 year in the Premier League, and it's our advantage. It's an advantage for us.
Is it a proper culture shock for that? There will be people
Yeah,
listening who are going to be in away-ins next year, have not been to Kenilworth Road before. Is it a genuine culture shock to go there
it's a
from what these
culture.
people will be used to?
Yeah, you can't sit down because
What?
you have
Because no
problems sitting.
seats, or
If you're 6 foot, you're in trouble, especially in the away end. From what I've heard, there's posts in the way. You'd like this, constantly trying to see the goal. Um, for the players, it's a nightmare. Fans are probably less than a meter away. They can touch the players if they want. Obviously, I don't condone it or anything like that. But if you're asking for the ball, the fans will shout out their face and things like that. It's I've seen, especially in like cup ties, Premier League players wilt on that pitch from the pressure. I don't know if you saw the Sunderland semi-final game, but they got it was just a match they couldn't cope, those players. So yeah, we'll see how Salah and Erling
there,
Haaland
there,
deal with it.
there are going to be a couple of shocks at Kenilworth Road next year, aren't there? There's going to be a couple of sizable teams are going to come down here and get beat.
Yeah, I hope so. And
Is
it's
that
going to
is
be
that because
massive
of the
because
environment? Do you think, or as much the
yeah,
style of the football team?
a mixture of both. If you're under pressure, we're throwing in long balls. We're throwing in. Um, we're making sure you've got to win 50-50s. We're pressing high up. We're throwing long balls in, and then you've got the atmosphere building and building. Just even for a throw in or a tackle, it's yeah. I think, and I hope it's going to be a massive advantage.
Is the pitch
Away from
small?
home, we might struggle. It will be the smallest it can be.
It's got to be, isn't it? I'm just thinking in terms of, I mean,
Yeah,
three sides of the ground literally are basically enclosed by a spider web of houses. There isn't, people
yeah.
say, oh, you got to make it bigger. You can't make the stadium
No, no, no.
bigger.
Oh, you can't make the stadium bigger now. And why are we going to let Liverpool and Man City have a massive pitch so they can play football around us? No. If you're going to play us, you're going to have to play through us. So yeah, but what was interesting, and that was like a major talking point going into the Wembley final, and I think people realised that we had the second best away record as well. Like since we've been back in the Championship, we know how to win 1-0 away from home. So hopefully that I'm not saying we're going to win loads away from. We're not. We're going to get spanked 6 or 7, a few, probably 2 or 3
You
times.
really
But
think so? Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Of course we are. Like I'm under no
The the
illusions
the,
if
the
when we
fantasy
go to
listeners just
City.
went target Luton.
Yeah, even I'm thinking about it to be honest. Um, but but yeah, but I think can we go away from home and pick up a 0-0 or 1-0 against anyone outside the top 6 or 7. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll see. I'm
Good.
probably being a bit too bullish, but yeah, I'm looking
I
forward to it.
think you're very, very allowed to be, mate. And I guess it's difficult to equate until we get into the season because we haven't seen this style against the opponent. I mean, you played Chelsea in the FA Cup. Was that this year or last year?
That was last year.
Last year.
I think we lost
Lost
three
3-2.
two, but that wasn't our first team because we were
No?
in that. We had obviously we were a few games behind because of COVID, and then we were rotating and obviously pushing for the um, for the playoffs. So that wasn't even our first team. Like Adebayo didn't play or anything like that in that game. So not
Talk to me.
saying it was
Talk to me
Chelsea's
about
first team.
some of these individuals in this first team. So I think firstly, 3-5-2 basically is that what you'd call the system?
Yeah, yeah,
And is it
yeah,
always
yeah. It'll be
that?
3. Yeah, it will always be that. Yeah,
So wingback's very important, and I understand they get
yeah,
hold of the ball quite a lot, don't they? So you've had Cody Drammer on loan from Leeds, was essentially the
yeah.
replacement for James Bree, who went to Southampton. Is that likely to become a permanent now that Leeds have gone down, or I guess Leeds might want to keep him?
Yeah, I think we'll try to sign him, but it'll probably be up to the player. I know I have seen links with Burnley are after him as well, so I think we would like to sign a player, or we'll sign a player similar in their molds. Like that, listeners might not know the player, but he'll be quite good attacking, good at putting crosses in. Um, yeah, so like wingbacks is definitely a way of like the way we play. We will use our wingbacks, and they will try to get forward and put crosses into the box for our two strikers.
So I don't want to get into fantasy just quite yet, but I presume all your defensive players are likely to be 4.5, aren't they? Or there might be one or two that are 4.0. Should
Yeah.
we, if there's a period where we want to invest and you're doing better defensively than perhaps is to give an expectation at the moment, should we be looking at defensive players because of a threat from set pieces, or should we look at the wing backs because of the attacking threat?
Um, that's really hard to know because we have, especially towards the end, we scored a lot. Especially Lockyer scored a lot from set pieces. But yeah, wing backs are definitely an option. And if you play Gaffer, which I know you did, James, our wing backs did score quite highly from that.
Yeah, I wasn't happy when James Bree was sold. I'll be totally honest. You mentioned Tom
Neither
Lockyer.
was I.
Obviously, had this horrendous incident in the playoff final at the weekend.
Yeah.
Thankfully, sounds like he's going to be okay. Although we don't know at this stage, obviously, if he'll be ready for the start of the season or not. But is that Lockyer, Osho, and Bell? Is that the first choice back three as it would stand now?
Yeah, maybe the only option is Burke, who came on, um, could take Osho's place, but with Osho's pace, he's been getting in the team. Um, Lockyer, it's interesting. We think Lockyer and Bell are out of contract, but it's all a bit hush hush at Luton. We never announced the length of the contracts, so I would guess that they would stay. But yeah, that would be the back three if we didn't sign anyone, I think.
Okay. And the goalkeeper, Ethan Hovarth, is actually on loan from Nottingham
Yeah,
Forest, I believe.
yeah, he
Is
is.
he
Yeah.
likely to come in, or is this going to be go and pick up the goalkeeper from somewhere?
I honestly don't know. It's been hard to know how good Horvath has been because he's kept a lot of clean sheets, but he's made 3 or 4 errors, which I'd say he has cost goals. And I'm not sure whether it's the actual team structure and our defense that has made him get those clean sheets more than Horvath has. So I think we'll either sign him or we definitely need a keeper. So whether it's him or another one will be coming in.
And the midfield three at started of the weekend, Marvelous Nakamba. Is that just loan from Villa, or is it
Yeah, on
done?
loan from Villa.
Done. So it's loan.
I would I would like to get him back.
He
Like
stood
I
out at the
mentioned,
weekend as someone who played Premier League
yeah,
level. You could tell.
yeah. And I know he's not great on the ball, but we don't, we won't have a lot of the ball. We need to try and win the ball back. And yeah, Nakamba, like I said, he was probably our best player in the second half of the season. That made a difference. Lockyer and Morris were excellent, but I think he was a key reason for how well we done.
Jordan Clark scored the goal at the weekend to
Yeah,
get a bit of attention, but it was the first goal for quite a while, wasn't it?
yeah, it was. We don't score a lot from centre mid, but he was out for like on and off for 2 or 3 months, so that was probably one of the reasons. But um, he's just signed a new deal, so I'm guessing he'll be staying. And yeah, he signed from Accrington on a free and as a winger, and he's now playing as an eight box to
Okay.
box midfielder. So it's just good good recruitment.
And most of the, I'd say most of the listeners, but many of the listeners will have heard about Pelly, Ruddock, and Panzo,
Yeah,
and he's been part of this whole journey. Um,
yeah.
he played for National League. He's played all the way through the leagues with you. Good enough for Premier League level?
We're gonna find out. I think he's got the attributes. He's quite physical, can get around up and down. So yeah, he's gonna be at the club. So we're gonna find out. So yeah,
Oh, the club's going to make sure he's going to get an appearance, aren't they?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the front two, there's been a lot of focus on Colton Morris. I'm as interested in Elijah Adebayo, who showed
yeah.
some nice touches, including obviously the assist at the weekend as well. Do you think that's likely to be the front two going into game week 1?
Not sure. I think we'll need to buy a striker. We've obviously got Corley Woodrow, who for the game was injured. So I'm guessing it'll be Morris, Adebayo, Woodrow, and one other. Um, young Taylor, Joe Taylor came on and obviously scored the disallowed goal and then scored the penalty, but
Did you know it was
he's
handball?
only 20. I did, but I was celebrating anyway, just in case. It looked like it because I was sort of sitting, I could see like I was in line with it, so I thought it was. But yeah, we had 3 goals disallowed for offside in that game, or fouls. So I think he'll get loaned out. He needs probably League One or League Two for development. So I think we'll definitely have a striker coming in. Um, but yeah, going back to sort of mentioned Morris, club record signing from Barnsley. Um, Very good, both footed, left foot, right foot. I'm not still not sure what foot he is. I think he's right footed, but I think if you look at how he scored his goals, I think it's pretty even between header, right foot, and left foot. Um, yeah, he can hold the ball up. He's 6 foot, can run in behind it. I think he'll score a few goals, hopefully in the Premier League. And Adebayo's an interesting one. Um, we signed for Walsall a couple of seasons ago for 250,000. Just one of these signing where he's 6'3". He's a bit raw, but he done very well in his first full season last season. Um, Not the one we've just got promoted for the year before, and there was a lot of talk about him getting interest from Premier League club. Um, the main interest came from MLS in the end, so he didn't move. But yeah, he was at probably a pretty similar level to Victor Gyökeres, and whereas Gyökeres obviously has improved and been the best striker in the league, Adebayo started the season with a few personal problems, and that affected him on his performances on the pitch. And I think if you look at the data, though, him and Morris have had similar chances, like XG and all that. It's just
Morris has outperformed it, hasn't he?
Adebayo's Morris outperformed it, and Adebayo like massively underperformed. So they're both hopefully going to be at the club, and then there's a high chance that could be a game week 1 partnership.
It's interesting. You mentioned Gyökeres obviously on the losing side with Coventry at the weekend. There's lots of speculation that he'll end up in the Premier League. Is a
Yeah,
player like that out of your reach?
probably. I think that from the amounts being talked about, they're on about 15-20 million. That we're not spending that. I think we'll spend in total maybe 20 to 40 million. I think.
Is that partly prohibited by the plans for the new stadium and stuff as well? Or is it the club just wants to
Yeah,
be very, very cautious here?
a mixture of both to help with the stadium. I think the club will probably view it as a 3-year plan. So obviously come up, get the 100 million, go down, and then you get your parachute payments. Um, like our average wage is 7-8 grand a week at the minute. Um, so we're bottom six for wage budget which in the championship. So I think what could be the way they're thinking is if we go up, we'll spend some money, we'll make some signings. If we come back down, we want to be maybe competing more wage rise, maybe for like 15, 20 grand a week. So it gives us a better chance to bounce back within those 2 years. I know fans from other clubs won't want to hear that, especially when you hear of Watford, Norwich, and Bournemouth who do that regularly. Fulham have done it regularly, but yeah, I think that's how we'll look at it. And the club aren't going to go bust. Their supporters,
No, we're
and
going to be
we
very
can't
conscious
go.
of what's happened previously as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, massively
I think in
conscious.
terms of wages perspective, you might correct me if I have my numbers wrong, but I think in terms of the whole squad, it's probably about £350,000 a week, probably, which there will be individual players in the Premier League who are earning more than that themselves in a week. So
Yeah,
this is
I'm
what
not
you're
even
trying to
sure it's that much.
this is what you're trying to compete against, though, isn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's half of that.
Really?
Like I said, our average from Kieran Maguire, our wages showed our average was 7 8 grand a week per player. So we'll have some players like Morrison out probably on maybe 10 grand a week. So yeah, that's the that's the difference we're in. So
And
that's why I'm
he,
saying it's so important that if we come
you,
back down, we're in a position to offer top championship wages.
you mentioned Colton Morris as a signing from Barnsley, sort of 1.5 million, I think,
Yeah,
rising sort of 2 million. You've only, as far as I can tell, according to Transfermarkt, you've only ever spent more than £1 million on a player twice before. And one of those
yeah,
instances was back in the 06-07 season. Adam Boyd, I think, was bought from Hartlepool, I want to say. And a goalkeeper, Simon Slugger, a few years ago. Looking at your top 10 all-time transfers in terms of incomings, it startled me to note that one of those is Paul Walsh. Now, for those who don't know Paul Walsh played for my team, Tottenham. And he played for Luton before he played for Tottenham. In fact, I think we bought Paul Walsh from you, I think. Luton bought Paul Walsh. And in fact, Tottenham bought Paul Walsh before I started going to football. Luton spent 450 grand on Paul Walsh from Charlton in the 1982-83 season. And that is one of your top 10 all-time transfers. It's 40
yeah.
years
That
ago.
doesn't surprise me. Yeah, although a lot of the transfers nowadays are undisclosed, so
Yeah.
I don't know if they. Yeah, so it's look, we're not going to spend ridiculous amount. We will probably break our transfer record numerous times this summer, but like I said, we're not going to put the club at risk. And the way we'll sign players, it'll be very data driven, similar to Brentford and Brighton. And a lot of the fans of other teams will be like, no, he's nowhere near Premier League ready, and he might not be, but with our coaching, we'll back ourselves that we'll turn them into players that will fit our system and our style of play.
The collective here is what's most important, isn't it? There have been
Yeah,
clubs
massively.
like yours who have come up in the past and stayed up, and there's been others who've gone straight back down. You know,
Yeah,
you've had your Swindons and your Barnsley's have gone straight back down. You had the likes of Oldham who did stay up in the top
yeah,
division for a while in the 90s. Obviously, Wimbledon is the very famous case of sort of nearly
yeah,
15 years or so. I know it's going back a long way. I think of examples like Blackpool, but Brentford is a great modern case. It's not a big football club, recently gone into their own stadium as well, right? I mean,
yeah,
we could have been having this conversation 1 year earlier about Griffin Park and people
yeah,
going there through the houses is similar sort of situation. Now they've got their own stadium, and I don't think, it's just 2 years in now. Brentford almost feels like established.
yeah. And I think the difference with Brentford and Luton is Brentford's, because of their model was so good and they were selling players constantly. That was before COVID. So I think because COVID hit, no one in the championship has any money. So whereas we probably would have had to sell some of our players for 3, 4 million here and there, no club in the championship has any money. So there hasn't been any sales. So um, I, I read somewhere on Twitter that our club is very good with the budget it has, and now you're giving it 100 million with our recruitment team. What can we do? And I'm excited to see that.
There'll be a consciousness though of that budget still got to be right if the worst happens and you
Yeah,
go back down
yeah,
and staying
yeah,
within those means. And now look, obviously there'll be parachute payments to, as you already mentioned, but obviously assist with that. But I imagine Luton will be sensible. Like no player is going to be signed without having a relegation clause in
yeah,
terms
yeah,
of a drop
yeah,
of wages and these sort of things in contracts. So I think it's fair to say the club's going to be very, very sensible. You mentioned the defensive record, Dan, second best in terms of expected goals against last
yeah.
season, sandwiched between the other two teams that are coming up. How do you rate Burnley and Sheffield United in comparison with yourself? You're obviously very familiar and would have watched quite a bit of them last season.
Yes. So Burnley, excellent. What they managed to do, um, the way they transformed the squad, the style of play. Company had a clear way of playing from game week one. From the very first game, the game was on TV against Huddersfield, and they looked miles ahead of Huddersfield. Um, they have a few players on loan, so it'll be whether they can get those players back. But Burnley won't go down. Burnley won't go down. They'll be closer to the top half.
Sheffield United?
Sheffield United, yeah, tricky with Sheffield United. I think they've got a lot of off-field problems. Like I know the owner is looking to sell, so will they be willing to buy players when he's still in charge, or will they have to wait until the takeover happens, and that might um, cause problems with signing players and getting the squad together. Um, I think Sheffield United are going to struggle, probably similar to Luton. Um, yeah, both of them are going to be definitely bottom six, I'd say.
Okay. In terms of expected goals for your team, you're actually only eighth.
Yeah,
Is that something we should be conscious of going into next season?
yeah, yeah. I think what we do is will create one or two big chances. So we're not gonna just create constantly big chances, but what we will do is we might get one or two big chances in a game, and if we score, then we've been very good of being 1-0 up and just controlling the game. So I think a lot of that probably pays into that. If you look at how many games we won 1-0, that'll be one of the game state will play a big part of that, I think. But yeah, we're not going to be free flowing, hammering teams. If we win games, it'll be 1-0, 2-1, 0-0, 1-1.
Do you think the average neutral is going to think it's ugly?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. Yeah, I
It
don't
should
care.
be. No, and you shouldn't. And the only thing you should be doing right now, rather than thinking about next season too much as well, is enjoying the brilliant achievement that your
Yeah,
football
yeah,
club has accomplished. It genuinely is a kind of fairy tale. It was almost a fairy
yeah,
tale final, to be honest, because for commentary, it would have been a fairy
yeah.
tale story in fairness as well. But you've done the business. Many congratulations. And we look forward to speaking to you again, obviously, during Correspondent Week, which is scheduled for July the 31st, everyone. Dan, thank you so much for your time and your debut Planet FPL appearance, mate. Where can everyone follow you on the bird at, mate?
Yeah, so for me personally, at Dan Luke Ashby, and like I said, I will still be doing the championship.
Good
Um,
man.
well, EFL at EFL Fantasy. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to the championship. That league looks absolutely bonkers. I'm glad I'm out of it.
It's going to be some going for
Yeah,
teams to get back out of that year next year. Certainly, some giant football clubs going to be playing at that level next year. Dan, Thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate that. Tomorrow, I've got who have I got with me tomorrow? David Mundy and Benny Blanco are joining me for a discussion about Saturday's big Game Week 39 charity match between North and South of the FPL community. Join us tomorrow for that. Just leaves me to say thanks again so much to Dan. Enjoy the summer. Good luck. Congratulations to Luton fans. Cue music, please, man.
Right.